The topic given to me today is to speak on IP policies and support measures at state and central level for innovators and startups. Okay, this is such a beautiful topic. Mr. Hiranmaye coined and formulated a very important topic. Though we have been talking informally about all these things, by giving this topic now, I also learned a lot while preparing for this talk. Such a, if you look at the innovators and startups, these are the two keywords. Who are innovators? What are startups? I think you need to understand that startup is like our body, and innovator is like our soul. So without these two things, innovators and startups, they cannot exist separately. So they coexist like a body and soul. So such an important concepts we need to understand, and how the central government and the state governments have put in place the policies to promote these innovators and startups. Next one, please. The broad structure of my presentation is that the importance of startups and IP in socio-economic development is very important. Why we are all pursuing innovation and startups? What is its importance? How it is going to affect the societies across the globe? I think once you understood those principles, I think you will pursue all these our ideas much vigor and more commitment. Then Government of India has also brought out a national IPR policy in 2006. What are the major constituents or components of this IPR policy? We are going to talk briefly. And then the state IPR policies. So in line with the national IPR policies, the state governments have also aligned their policies in line with the national IPR policies. We are going to spend some time on that, how these states are implementing, and what is their rankings in terms of IPR filing, in terms of innovation, in terms of startups. Some information we are going to share on these topics. Then comparison of IPR policies of few premier institutions in India and abroad to make you more knowledgeable to understand what are those components of an IPR policy which are adopted by or implemented by some of the premier institutions. Okay. And finally, I would like to spend some time on how NRDC is promoting innovation, IP, startups in the country. So broadly, this is the structure of my presentation. Hope by end of my presentation, all of you would acquire definitely better knowledge, better information than what you are currently know about this entire ecosystem. Next one, please. Next one. Yeah, why should we promote startups? As I mentioned, that the startups are really the growth engines. There is like a body. Unless if there is a body, there is no place for a soul, or that is innovation. So the way we need to promote or keep the startups healthy. See, like a startup is a vehicle to drive the innovation, like a body is a vehicle to hold the spirit and the Atma and perform all our functions. Okay, so like that, these startups are so important for any socio-economic development of any country or any nation, or even for that matter, the world. So startups are ideal vehicles for bringing innovations to the marketplace. So if you have an innovation, you have developed something out of your research, out of your passion, but how do you take that innovation to the society? It is only possible to take that innovation to the society through by means of a startup, or we call it also an MSME. Okay. Then these startups are basically seeds for the future large scale companies and corporates. हम लोग अभी देख रहे इतना बड़ा बड़ा कंपनीज दुनिया में है. ऑल दोज बड़ा बड़ा कंपनीज वंस अपॉन अ टाइम ये अंकुर परिश्रम है, वो स्टार्टअप्स है बिगिनिंग में. अभी ओवर ए पीरियड वो बहुत बड़ा कंपनीज बन गया. सो उतना बड़ा कंपनी बनाने के लिए क्या अभी चाहिए, हम लोग ज़्यादा स्टार्टअप्स प्रमोट करना है. फॉर एग्जांपल हमारा इन्फोसिस है, नारायण मूर्ति साहब ने वो कंपनी स्टार्ट किया, उसी टाइम पर उनका गैरेज में 2-3 लोगों से शुरू किया है। अभी दुनिया में वन ऑफ द लीडिंग सॉफ्टवेयर कंपनीज इन द वर्ल्ड, इसीलिए देयर आर लाइक ए सीड्स एंड ए स्टार्टअप्स आर रियली कैपेबल ऑफ adopting innovation very fast, very rapidly, because they have a flexibility. बड़ा बड़ा ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में इनोवेशन इंप्लीमेंट करना बहुत मुश्किल होता है. If you want to bring innovation to the market, it is only possible through startups. वो बाद में वो स्टार्टअप को बड़ा कंपनी खरीद करके उसमें मर्ज करके वो स्केल अप करता है, वो इजी होता है. इसीलिए उनको, इसीलिए ये स्टार्टअप्स आर बहुत बहुत जरूरी है देश के लिए, देश डेवलपमेंट के लिए. एंड द स्टार्टअप्स कैन ग्रो मच फास्टर, they can become unicorns. इसी में उतना फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी है, उतना एनर्जी है, उतना अडेप्टेबिलिटी है, इसीलिए ये स्टार्टअप्स बहुत जल्दी यूनिकॉर्न्स बन सकता है. फॉर एग्जांपल, इफ यू लुक एट, वी हैव अराउंड 29 यूनिकॉर्न्स इन आवर कंट्री. यूनिकॉर्न मतलब ये कंपनी वैल्यूड $1 billion एंड मोर इज कॉल्ड ए यूनिकॉर्न. हमारे इंडिया में इफ यू लुक एट लास्ट 8-9 years में 29 कंपनीज, स्टार्टअप कंपनीज हैव बिकम यूनिकॉर्न्स. So that is the growth possibility. Once you have companies with that kind of evaluation, they create a lot of wealth and employment to the nations. Then a startups also promote inclusive growth. Growth तो सबको चाहिए. It should not be only for the richer become richer, नहीं होना चाहिए. The poor people also should be able to get employment. They should be able to earn their livelihoods. So that is how we shift the poverty lines. So this startup companies also helps in promoting the inclusive growth across the country, not only in metros and larger towns and cities. Now the startups are also happening or taking place in tier 1, tier 2 cities as well. So they also promote inclusive growth. The MSMEs or startups also contribute around 29% of GDP, 40% of exports, and they create employment for 11 crore people. Okay, so this is the kind of impact the startups or the MSMEs they make on the socio-economic development of any country. See, they also have several challenges. Whatever we said, they are good, they are contributing, but they also face several challenges like access to innovative technologies. Any startup or MSME wanted to be sustainable, they should adopt a innovative technology. That is a major challenge. Okay, then they also need finance. Finance is the fuel. ये तेल है SMEs को, startups के लिए. Finance is such an important thing. Though you may be having बहुत brilliant idea है, but if you don't have adequate resources from government or on our own, we may not be able to convert those ideas into products or processes. So that is why very, very important is finance. Then trained manpower is very important. So today's program is also a part of building a trained manpower, capacity building within our systems, so that we are equipped with the latest trends, knowledge, skill sets. Then IPR issues. The startups और MSMEs में एक important challenge है IPR. बहुत लोगों को IPRs का बारे में बहुत जानकारी नहीं होता है. आज का ये प्रोग्राम है, बहुत अच्छा प्रोग्राम हिरणमयी जी ने इनिशिएट किया थ्रू हाईहब एंड गुजरात एजुकेशन डिपार्टमेंट. बहुत बढ़िया प्रोग्राम है. इसी तरफ का प्रोग्राम कभी भी होया अभी तक हो गया नहीं है देश में, क्योंकि इतना लार्ज स्केल में. आई वाज टोल्ड 5000 people have registered for this course, online course के लिए, to understand IPRs. IPRs are very, very important in the knowledge economy. All of us should know IPR मतलब क्या है, इसका benefits क्या है, इसका process क्या है, करने से क्या होता है, नहीं करने से क्या होता है, बहुत बहुत जरूर है वो knowledge इसका ऊपर. So today's program also will add some knowledge, throw some knowledge on these issues. Of course, startups are important, MSCs are important for the socio-economic development of a nation. Government also has created large number of opportunities, supporting schemes, both at the central as well as state, to promote MSMEs and startups. Of course, now the COVID, we are all passing through COVID, very difficult times. All our lives have come to a standstill, all our businesses have come to a standstill. The government of India has also created that kind of a stimulus fund of 20 lakh crores. Hope with all these things we will be able to survive, sustain, and come back to the normal situation fast with a to maintain the earlier growth rates. Next one, please. Next one. Hello. Yeah. Now, in this business environment, what is the importance of IP in business particularly? As we understood, if you have a protected IP, in your business, it brings economic growth, development, creates wealth, it creates jobs, quality of life will be enhanced, purchasing power will be enhanced, and ultimately it leads to GDP. So whatever the materialistic benefits today we are enjoying in terms of all the comforts, the air conditioners, the aeroplanes, the automobiles, the mobile phones, smartphones, the computers, they have all come from innovation, creativity, and they also created large number of job opportunities, wealth for the inventors as well as to the nations who owns these technologies. Business performance is directly proportional to IP capability. I think this is a very, very important statement I would like to make here. If you look at the major businesses, they are all doing so well because they hold large number of IP portfolio. If you look at companies like Microsoft, IBM, or Accenture, you name any big company, they are all rich because today even the Facebook, Google, they hold thousands of patents on their name. So that competitive advantage they are getting because of this IP knowledge, and they are doing very well. IP promotes FDI, Make in India. This is also you are all very aware. If you have an IP, particularly for a foreign company, they can come to India under the Make in India program and establish ventures. So they get what we call 100% FDI in some cases. If you have come with an IP of your own, you can set up a plant, government provides all the necessary support to them under the Make in India program. As I mentioned to you, 85% of the market capitalization of major companies lies in the intangible assets like IP. As I mentioned to you, if you look at Microsoft, for example, 90% of their company valuation is coming from the intangible assets. Okay, IP is one of the intangible assets. In the brick and mortar economy, the earlier or the generation economy men, material and capital created wealth. But in the current era of knowledge economy, new ideas, innovations, IPs are the backbone for sustainable economic growth. Even for combating COVID also, there are more than 100 companies working across the globe to come out with a technology, to come out with a vaccine, which is going to be driven by IP. People who comes first, who gets secure their IP, they will become leaders in the technology. So IP is such an important in the commercial era as well. Next one, please. I would like to give one example here. The impact IP, the impact of IP in the US economy. There was a study carried out by US PTO in 2016 in around 130,000 startup companies. So they found out very interesting observations or results. What they said is that in all these companies, when they assessed, around 45 million high-paid jobs were created through the companies or startups who have IP with them. So they contributed around 30% of the US jobs. And they also contributed about 6 trillion to the US economy. That is equivalent to 38% of the GDP of USA has directly come from the patented products, patented technologies. And the importance of IP can also be seen in the world e-marketplace like Amazon. If you don't have a trademark or a brand or IP for your product, they don't even market in the e-platform. startups MSMEs earned 32% more revenue compared to the counterpart who are not having IPs. This is also another major driving force for MSMEs startups to adopt IP in their businesses. This study clearly shows that a similar product is being produced by without having IP and a company or a startup having IP. It shows that the company which has got IP, they earned 32% more revenue because always patented products are costlier compared to the generic products. So IPRs are truly intellectual currency, helping to promote economic growth, company competitiveness, and innovation across the world. So that is the importance of IP. We all, particularly the new generation, should understand the dynamics, the game plan, and the essentials of the intellectual property rights. Next. So particularly for startups, since we are talking about startups also in this lecture, why IP is important for startups is very, very important for all the startups to understand. As you are all aware, if you have an IP granted, you will get an exclusive right on that knowledge or on that technology. If it is a patent, for example, you will get exclusive right for 20 years. No one can use your knowledge without taking permission from you. Or you wanted to manufacture, sell, you are the only person can do it. If somebody does the same thing, same product or same technology or same service, you can always file a case against the other person who is producing the same product using same knowledge. So that is the advantage. You will get exclusive right on your knowledge. So that way you will get also exclusive rights in the market as well for that product. So that is the biggest advantage having a patent in your venture. The product, the service which you are trying to produce should have a patent so that you will get the competitive advantage. And also it improves the valuation of the business. See, many times, not very many times, all the times you need to raise money to scale up your business. When you want to raise money, you have to go to venture capitalists, angel investors, private equity players. So they also look for whether there is a IP protection for the product or technology in your venture. If you have that IP protection, the valuation of the company also goes up. So by that way, you can raise more money by selling less number of shares. That is also another advantage. It also attracts investors because they also get their interest protected. As I mentioned to you, every investor, what is the purpose? They also want to make money. If they make investments in such a patent protected startup companies, so for them also the returns are guaranteed because you are the only producer for that product or service because based on your patent. So their investments are also protected. So they would like to invest in your company. That is what the benefit. And it also acts as a both defensive as well as offensive mechanism. So somebody says that you have copied my patent or copied my technology, copied my product. If you have a patent, you can always show to them, no, I have not copied. Government of India or the government of whichever jurisdiction you have filed patent, you can show it to them. I got a patent. I have not copied anybody's technology, or you can show it to them. That way you can get protection. Somebody copies also, you can also sue against them saying that I am holding a patent, you have copied my product. So that is the biggest advantage of having a patent. And also it provides new revenue. If you want to sell your technology, if you don't want to commercialize yourself, you can also transfer this technology, licensing or outright sale. So that way also you can generate revenue for your patents. IP is must for exports, particularly in developed economy like US and Europe. If you want to export, almost it is compulsory to hold a patent. And it also improves the negotiating power in case if you are establishing a joint ventures based on your IP. So these are all some of the important aspects all the entrepreneurs should understand. And this slide shows that the correlation between IPRs and the GDPs of the major economies. If you look at China, is the #1 in the world in terms of filing patents. They file around 15 lakh patents. And if you see their economy, around 14-15 trillion billion dollars. Similarly, the US, they also file around 6.5 lakh patents every year. And if you see the economy, 21.4 trillion US dollars. Of course, the quality of US patents are much stronger compared to any country's patents. So that is why their realization is much higher. Similarly, Japan, if you look at, they also file around 3 lakh patents. Their economy size about 5 trillion. And Germany, they file around 67,000, 70,000 patents. Then if you see their economy around 3.86 trillion, India files around 50,000 patents. Our economy is almost close to 3 trillion. So there is a strong relation between a country's creativity, innovating capacity, intellectual property rights, and the startups. They're all nothing but innovation. So there is a strong relation between intellectual property rights and the country's economy. Next one, please. And this is also another important parameter we all need to understand. Patents for $100 billion of our GDP, particularly in developed economies, particularly in Asia Pacific region. If you look at South Korea, has got the highest patents ratio per $100 billion. For every $100 billion of GDP, they are filing around 8,600 patents. China around 5,800, Japan around 5,200. India very, very behind filing patents for $100 billion. So what is the reason? Why we are so much behind compared to all these in our own Asian region? That is the point we all need to deliberate, understand what are the reasons, how we can improve our patents. That is the major challenge before us. Even Government of India has also realized. And next one, please. And brought out large number of programs, policies to push India also in the rankings of patent filing or Global Innovation Index. All these things are interrelated. So there was a patent IPR policy earlier in bits and pieces, but in 2016, Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi's leadership, the Government of India has brought out very vibrant and holistic national IPR policy. The vision of this IPR policy is to make India a creative and innovative nation by stimulating intellectual property for the benefit of all. And also it says in India where intellectual property promotes advancement in science, technology, arts, culture, traditional knowledge and biodiversity resources. In India where knowledge is the main driver of development, knowledge owned is transformed into knowledge shared. So this is a kind of a vision. Government of India has launched this national IPR policy with a mission to achieve, or rather stimulate, a dynamic, vibrant, balanced intellectual property rights systems in India, which could lead to foster creativity and innovation and thereby promote entrepreneurship and enhance socio-economic and cultural development and focus on enhancing access to healthcare, food security and environmental protection among other sectors of vital social, economic and technological importance. So the Government of India is very clear. They wanted to nurture that kind of a ecosystem in our country which provides security, food security, health security, energy security, water security. So if you want to achieve all these things, government also realized innovation is the key and they brought out this policy. And to implement this policy, Government of India also created an institutional mechanism called CPAM. Next one, please. The Center for Intellectual Property Rights Management was created under this. Next one, please. Government has created this CPAM as a part of DIPP to implement, monitor, and guide all the stakeholders in implementation of this national IPR policy. So national IPR policy has got 7 articles or contents or objectives. The first and foremost is IPR awareness. So it's not that we are not doing research, it is not that we are not inventing new products, but our awareness levels are very poor. That is what on this IPR policy, government has created one particular specific objective to create IPR awareness across all levels, across all states. So to do that, this outreach and promotion, they thought it is very, very important, and CPAM has been given this responsibility, and CPAM along with many other partnering institutions throughout the year conducting under MSME and IPFCs, conducting hundreds of programs to create awareness, but still the results are not that great. During the last 3-4 years, if you look at, our IPR filings have increased only hardly around some 20-25%, but still there's a lot of scope and hope. So that is the first and foremost component in the IPR awareness. Even today's this program, this online program, course is also part of that creation of IPR awareness among all the stakeholders. Then generation of IPR, this is the foundation of the block for raising our bar, generation of IPRs. So how do we generate IPRs? Unless we stimulate or provide funding, provide the kind of ecosystem, we cannot generate IPRs. If you want to generate IPRs, you should have a creative mind. IPR is what? It is intellectual property right. It is created through your intellect, through your brain, through your thoughts. So how do we nurture that? That is nothing but creating kind of a ecosystem to nurture creativity from the young age. When you are a student, as a school student, as a high school student, as a college student, you need to develop that kind of a skill to think innovatively, observe the problems in the society and see how you can solve that problem. That is nothing but a research problem, and solving it, it becomes innovation. So that kind of a nurturing creativity at very young age onwards is very, very important to generate more IPRs. So that is where I think the key lies. Today's initiative is also towards aiming that to create or nurture creativity in the young minds. That is very, very important if you wanted to have a world-class IPRs. Then legal and legislative frameworks are also very, very important. You want to nurture creativity. So to have a strong and effective IPR, laws are very important. Once you created a intellectual property, how you protect it, how you exploit it, there should be strong laws. So that is what government from time to time amending the laws and making these laws more stronger and more effective, and also enhances the stakeholders' contribution and the commitments to come out with more innovations. And also it is important to balance the interest of the owners of the IP rights and also the public interest. Public interest is ultimately the driving factor. At the same time, unless you incentivize the inventors, innovation doesn't come. So always there is a balance has to be achieved between these two requirements. So Government of India is also coming out with a lot of incentives, schemes to grow both the sides of the equation. One side the interest of the inventors, the other side the public interest. Sometimes government also has to compensate. IPR administration and management is also very, very important to modernize. That's what many people say, that once we file an application, it takes 5 years, 6 years to get a patent. Why it is taking so much time? What is the use of filing a patent? So it's not that once you file a patent, from that date onwards, you will get your protection. Government of India has also now recruited so many patent examiners so that the service delivery will be enhanced and people applications will be processed fast and they get the patents granted very fast. So Government of India has also now streamlined all these IPR offices, recruited more people, training is being given to them. Now things are improving. Now we are able to get even patent even 18 months also in some extreme cases, good cases. Then once you have developed a patent, got a patent, the next important thing is if you want to get the value of the patent, you need to commercialize it. Commercialize the IPR. So get value for IPRs is only possible through commercialization. Unless the industry uses your IP, you will not get the benefit of the IP. So government is also pushing that, and one agency which is playing a major role at the national level is NRDC, our organization, where we interact with all the IPR generators, the institutions, and we take those IPRs and commercialize them. NRDC in the recent past has commercialized more than 5,000 such kind of technologies and IPRs collected or sourced from different public funded organizations in the country. And enforcement and adjudication is also very, very important to grow the IPR culture. Enforcement means somebody copies it or you copied someone's technology. There should be a strict enforcement. Then only we get the respect for the IP and the system will be strengthened. Okay, that is how it drives the entire IP momentum. Then human capital development is also very, very important. We don't have many people to teach students about the IPR. Even today's online course is a very good initiative to build this human capital. Human capital is ultimate, the driving force for any organization, for any country to reach to the development state. So the human capital is very, very important. So to strengthen and expand human resources, institutions, the capacities for teaching, training, research, skill building in IPRs is very, very important. Again, this area is also growing very fast along with IPR awareness. Then agencies like under DPIIT, CPAM, NRDC, TIFAC, CSIR, DRDO, DBT, ISRO, BIRAC, ICAR, IITs, even state governments like your SSIP, iHub, they are doing extremely good job to promote or implement the national IPR policy with all these 7 components. Next one, please. This is very, very important. All of you, many of us are not aware what is IPR policy of India. So these are all the 7 chapters of the IPR policy, and we need to understand. If you go through it, it gives you a lot of insights and processes, procedures. And it is also important for all of you to understand where we stand, what are the number of applications filed in all these IPs. Patents, as I mentioned to you, is a 17-18 data. I think 18-19, if you look at around 50,000 patents we have filed, whereas China files 15 lakhs, US files 6.5 lakhs, we are filing only 50,000. There is a great need and push is required to enhance our patent filings. As I mentioned to you, it's not that we are behind anyone, we are doing research, we are number 2 or number 3 or in publications, but we are not converting all those publications into patents. I think before we go for publication, if you are able to convert or take a policy, first patent, then publish, then we will be probably number 2 or number 3 in the world in terms of filing patents, because we are number 3 or 4 in publishing papers. So if you put a condition, the policy change, what is required is that before publishing a paper, you publish a or file a patent, then the scale is totally reverted. Okay, India will be at in the top 2 or 3 ranks in terms of filing patents. I think that is what is required. The government should also bring such kind of a transformative policy decision. I think all of us, we need to press for it, bring such kind of policy. And also before granting a PhD also in our country, I think lakhs of PhDs we produce, at least each PhD thesis should have 1 or 2 patents. Again, if you put a condition, again we can reach that numbers. The patent filings of our country can tremendously increase. So that is what I think these policy initiatives are required. I think CPAM should take note of it and try to convince the policy makers of the country, so that the education policy makers, so that India will emerge as a top 5 in the patent filings as well. The designs, the next IP is the design, of course, about 11,000, 12,000 design applications are being filed. Okay, it's fine. Coming to the state policies in line with the central government IPR policy or the startup policy, the state governments have also come up with very proactive policies to promote IP and startups in the respective states. Almost every state has got a policy, a startup policy. Again, the startup policy, IP is an integral part. Some of them, they may not be having IP policy per se, but they have a startup policy. The startup policy, the major ingredients of related to IP is that almost every state is giving, incentivizing the researchers, innovators, inventors who are filing patents in their respective states. Each state now, I think, has got, or rather giving if it is a national patent, I think they are giving to 2 to 5 lakhs, and if it is international patent, 10 to 15 lakhs. There is a variation between the states, but nevertheless, all states have realized the importance of promoting IP, and they have come out with a scheme, grant schemes to file patents. That is a very, very positive thing. And all the researchers should realize there is no dearth of money for filing patent. If you have a patent, either the state government or the central government has got a scheme to file your patent free of cost. For example, NRDC, we have got a scheme to file patents free of cost for all the universities, whether it is a private or a public. We have got a scheme to file patent free of cost. Only thing is, many people are not aware of such kind of schemes. So what is important is that awareness is very much important. Reaching out to all these agencies is very, very important as a researcher. So the main message I would like to convey to you all is that if you have an innovative idea, you can file a patent without spending any single rupee from your hand. Either the university or the state government or the central government. There are so many agencies like TIFAC provides financial assistance. NRDC files patents free of cost. Okay, and each institute in the ministry, science, technology ministry, every department has got a patent cell. So only thing is you need to reach out to them. Then you will get assistance for filing patent, mentoring for filing patent, whether your idea is patentable or not. All these things are available. That is a major shift in the policy is happened during the last 5-6 years. If you have a patent, there is no dearth of money. You will get money from some corner in the country. There is no dearth of money. There is no worry. You don't have to worry about the money part at all. See, if you want to file a patent and maintain it in India, it would cost around 4 to 5 lakhs for the 20 years period. The entire cost is being borne by NRDC. If anyone approaches NRDC, we file patents and we take care of its maintenance cost. If you want to file a patent in foreign country, it would cost around 10 to 15 lakhs. So many governments are giving, if you file a patent, of course they give in a 3 stages at the time of filing, at the time of prosecution, at the time of granting. So different states have got different percentages they have fixed, but the money is available. So how you can get the benefit is that only thing is you should try to understand the ecosystem, understand the government schemes, then you will come to know where the money is available. Next, almost every incubation center is being given funds to help the startup companies to file their patents. And this is a Startup India report 2018. If you see, I compared it with the state of Andhra Pradesh in connection with some assessment we did. See, the startup ecosystem has been evaluated on 7 pillars. Okay, what are those pillars? The startup policy and implementation. The states who have got a good startup policy and their implementation results are there. Based on that, they have ranked all the states. But DIPP has ranked all the states in terms of the ecosystem. So startup policy implementation is one pillar. Incubation support is another pillar. Seed funding support is another pillar. Angel and venture funding is another pillar. Simplified regulations is another pillar in the state government. Ease of public procurement. You see, government is the largest procurer of all the innovations. So how the governments have come out with a policies of procuring from these innovators. Then awareness and outreach. So all the states have been ranked on these 7 pillars. So the maximum mark for each pillar is about 20 marks. If you look at in our country, I think thanks to BIRAC and thanks to DST and other departments in the government, because of their efforts, almost India, every nook and corner, everywhere you will find incubation centers. So if you look at this spider graph, among all the parameters, the India, the incubation support system is the strongest pillar compared to all other pillars. So what is the weakest pillar here is that awareness and outreach, startup policy and implementation, they are not that great. Of course, many of the states have got around 13 marks out of 20. So based on this, these are all the best states. That is what we study here. Best state score we compared with an AP when we were asked to present the AP scenario. So these are all the 7 pillars. When you wanted to assess any state's performance or state policy, how the state is doing in terms of innovation and entrepreneurship and startups, these are the 7 pillars. It is the responsibility of the state governments to align their policies in line with the central government, and the state government institutions should incorporate all these components in their policy making, so that the ecosystem in the state will emerge as a very thriving. As per the 2018 Startup India report, you all might be knowing Gujarat emerged as a #1 state in the startup ecosystem, not startups per se, but the startup ecosystem, the number of initiatives like the incubation centers, the seed funding, angel funding, simplified regulations, ease of public procurement, awareness and outreach programs. Today's program is also an outstanding example of reaching the large number of stakeholders, So this they will get when the assessment is done. All these things go into that report. How many people got benefited out of, or how many programs have been organized to create awareness. So I was told by Hiranmayi about 1 lakh people are going to get benefit directly or indirectly from this program. So they will score much higher in this awareness and outreach program. So these are all the 7 pillars on which the state's performance or the state's policies in terms of startups are being evaluated by the central government. So it is a need and necessity of the state governments to adopt these pillars and create such kind of a ambience and environment there, so that you will be able to raise in the national level rankings. Next one, please. Yeah, see, Niti Aayog has also brought out a report in 2019 in terms of assessing innovativeness. So there are 2 important things are there. One is startup ranking, the other one is innovation ranking. So innovation parameters are again a little bit different. They too have a 7 pillars again, but the pillar definition is different here. For example, human capital. If you want innovation to happen in a state, what is required is that human capital is required. The next one is investment is required. The next pillar is that knowledge workers are important. The next pillar is business environment. Then safety and legal environment is also very, very important. Knowledge output, knowledge dissemination. These are all the 7 pillars on which the entire nation has been, or the states in the nation have been ranked. If you look at this very, very interesting spider diagram which we have plotted, on all these 7 pillars, Chandigarh emerged as a #1 in terms of human capital. There are again each one has got several parameters. Based on that, the Chandigarh state has emerged as a #1 in human capital. Karnataka emerged as a #1 in terms of investments. Okay, investments in innovation. And Himachal Pradesh is emerged as a knowledge workers. This is the best state for knowledge workers. So a lot of state incentives, state policies, a lot of industries have been set up there in Himachal Pradesh, Baddi and all those areas. So when they counted these knowledge workers, Himachal Pradesh holds, I think, a large number. Then business environment, Goa is emerged as the best. Then if you look at safety and legal environment, Sikkim is the best. Knowledge output, if you look at Delhi, emerged as #1, because whatever knowledge we are creating, that knowledge in terms of technologies, patents, publications, there are knowledge outputs. Delhi emerged as #1. Then Knowledge diffusion again, Karnataka. So these are all the important variables or pillars if you want to assess a state's performance. So it is the responsibility of the state government and all the stakeholders to focus on all these variables like human capital, investment, knowledge workers, business environment, knowledge output, knowledge diffusion. Yeah, next one. So then who are all the top 10 states? We have gathered data of all the 10 states during the last 3 years, not in a single year, but on a consolidated basis of 3 years. If you look at Maharashtra emerged as number 1 state in terms of filing patent. During the last 2.5 years, 3 years, they filed around 9,200 patents, followed by Tamil Nadu, then Karnataka, Delhi, Telangana, Uttar Pradesh. Gujarat is also there in the top 10 filers of patents in our country. So these are all the top 10 countries who have been filing large number of patents. One please. And we have also plotted startups. What are all the states who are leading in number of startups? Again, you can also see the correlation between at least 1 or 2 cases. Maharashtra is number 1 in patent filings. Maharashtra is also number 1 in startups as per the Startup India report, followed by Karnataka, Delhi, Uttar Pradesh, Haryana, and Gujarat. See, it is a very interesting fact or a contradiction you can see. In terms of number of startup companies in Gujarat per year, I think this is only for a particular year, I think 18 basically, as per the Startup India report, Gujarat has got only 764 startups. But if you look at the ecosystem as a whole, as I mentioned to you, which was measured on the 7 pillars, Gujarat is the only state in the country who emerged as a top on the assessment rankings. Gujarat is number 1 in the startup ecosystem. So they have all the 7 pillars. What I mentioned is that they laid foundation, they have put systems in place, they started delivering. Probably I'm not surprised because of all this ecosystem building and happening in Gujarat. Maybe down the line in the next 2 to 3 years, Gujarat may even become number 1 in kind of startup, even startups also. Yeah, next one. Yeah, now let us try to understand. Each institute should have a IPR policy or IPR guidelines in line with the IPR policies of the central government. In line with the central government policy, state government should have a policy. In line with the state and central government, the institution should also have a IPR policy. So the policy basically drives or directs all our actions towards progress. So it is very, very important to understand what are all the kinds of guidelines. Basically, there are all the guidelines in the IPR policies can be classified as 3 categories: core IPR guidelines, supplementary guidelines, and specific guidelines. Okay, next one. So these are, we have compared these guidelines. We have listed around some 38 or 40 guidelines across the institutions, premier institutions in the country, like Indian Institute of Science, All Indian Institute of Medical Science, Indian Council of Agriculture Research, IIT Delhi, Harvard University, MIT, and John Hopkins University, and some US Army. So in these 6 or 7 institutions, what are the types of policies or the policy parameters they follow? We have listed here, like setting up of administrative body. If you want to promote IP, there should be a body in your institute, IPR cell or IPR body. It is necessary. Then setting up of a decision-making body. See, once you have a policy, who takes the decision? Okay, there should be a committee, the director. So these are all the parameters in the IPR policy related to an institute. Broadly, we captured all these parameters a typical IPR policy of institute or a state should have. Then ownership of supporting inventions, ownership of incidental inventions, ownership of foreground IP, then ownership of copyright, IPR other than the patent. Okay, introduction of IPR other than the patent, as I mentioned to you, not only patent, there are other 6 or 7 types of IPRs. Then importance of provision for IP laws, invention disclosure framework. See, once you invented something, there should be a framework on which, under which you will report it to that authority, the body. Then patentability assessment framework. There should be a patentability within your institute or department, your IPR cell. You should have that kind of a capability to assess the patentability, whether it is there or not. Licensing of IP, whatever IP you have developed, whether you can license it or not. Assignment of the invention to the inventor. So once you develop a technology, the assignment will be sometimes on the name of the institute, sometimes on the individuals who developed it. So all these parameters one has to have a thorough understanding and incorporate in your IPR policy, licensing inventions to inventor. So a faculty or a student invented while working there, whether the license can be given to him or not. If it is given to him, what are the terms and conditions? Okay, whether the institute can take an equity in that company or not. Okay, then once you generate a revenue out of licensing, how do you share that IP money? Whatever money you have generated, how do you share it? How much the individual scientist should get, the inventor should get, how much the head of the department should get, how much the institute should get, how much the supporting staff should get. So like this, there are several parameters, like around 38, 40 parameters are there in the generally in any IPR policy. So we have captured here some of the majority of these parameters are present in many of the institutes. And what we have seen, next one please. So the yellow one is they are not present, these parameters are not present because they are all auxiliary and not that important. IP awareness and training programs. Then conditional foreign filing, then conditional patent renewal. So suppose you should also have a clarity in your IPR policy. How do you renew it? Every year you need to renew, or every 3 years, every 5 years there is a pattern. So depending on how do you renew it, who pay for the money, from where do you generate those resources? Then royalty, profitability, handling of infringements. Somebody files a case against you, then how do you deal those infringements? So like that, around 39. Next one, please. Yeah. So all these 39 parameters can be classified into, as I mentioned to you, core guidelines, supplementary guidelines, and specific guidelines. So these core guidelines are very, very important. If you are a beginner and if you are just starting, start with something simple. As you are growing, as you are maturing, you can add more and more clauses to your IPR policy, depending on the need, depending on the market requirements. So these are all the 3 types of a clauses or a rules you can frame in your IPR policy. Next. So here I have given an example of Harvard University, how the IP is being generated, how it is being filed and transferred, and startups created, revenue generated. Any typical university, a IP department is supposed to do this. Okay. So what are those things here? See, in case of Harvard University, the university files around 400 to 500 inventions disclosures. It receives 400 to 500 invention disclosures on an average every year. So that is one of the functions of a IPR office or a TTO office. Generally, IPR and TTO, they go hand in hand. Sometimes they call it the IPO office or patent cell. Sometimes they also call TTO, technology transfer office. But they do both the functions like IP assessment, IP filing, then technology transfer. So all these functions will be done by the same department. So here what happens? They receive around 500 invention disclosures, and the university IPR cell or a TTO need to take a call to decide how many of them need to be filed. See, all the patent applications what they receive cannot be filed as a patents because it is quite expensive affair. So you need to see the commercial potential of those applications what you have received. If you feel, if the committee decides, if the authority decides, yes, this technology has got a commercial potential, or it brings revenue to the institute, or it protects, brings the name and fame to the institute, then they should file those patents. So out of 500 applications they have received, they have only filed around 250 to 200. On an average, we can say around 250 applications. Only 50% of the applications what they have been receiving are only filed as a patents. The remaining thing they have not filed as a patents. They can just publish a paper. That's all. That is the output of that. Then out of this 50% of the applications what they have filed, almost every year they are getting 50% of their patents also granted. Okay. Once the patent is granted, again the TTO office or the IPR office duty is to commercialize them, license them. So the team also market these patents, and almost around less than 50 or 50%, less than 50 or maybe 40%, 40 to 45% of these US patents they were able to license also by way of finding startup companies or large companies who can buy these patents. Then they have also commercialized these technologies, and on an average, if you look at every year, around 20 to 25 startups, they are promoting by licensing their own patents in the university campus. They have a good incubation center. In that incubation center, these startups are being nurtured and matured. Okay, this is how a university, typical research university, have this kind of a outputs: patent application disclosures, patent filing, patent granting, patent licensing, revenue generation from licensing, then creation of startups. So these are all the typical indicators of a good research university, apart from, of course, good peer-reviewed publications. Next, and also consultancy projects the research brings. So coming to NRDC, how NRDC is helping in India to promote IP, technology commercialization, innovations, and all these things. I would like to spend maybe another 5-6 minutes. So NRDC, most of you may be aware, it is under the Ministry of Science and Technology, Government of India, which was established in the year 1953, with a major mandate to promote, develop, commercialize indigenously developed technologies. So as per its mandate, NRDC works with almost all R&D organizations in the country, universities, corporate R&D, individual inventors, even NGOs, identify the good technologies which have got a industrial application or societal, which can meet the societal needs. So identify those technologies, evaluate them. If there are some gaps in the technology, see, most of the technologies which are coming from the academic environment particularly, they are at a technology readiness level 3 or 4. That is what, when you measure the technology maturity level, we use a scale called technology readiness level. The technology should be at 8, technology readiness level of 8 or 9 is there. That is easy to transfer. If it's anything below that, it is very difficult to transfer because the risks are much higher. The gaps in the technology are much higher. So what NRDC does here is that whatever technologies we identify which have got a potential for commercialization, we identify those technologies and evaluate the technology to find out the gaps. So we fill those gaps and package it and license it to entrepreneurs, startups, MSMEs, corporates in India and outside. So that is the unique business model of NRDC. We take premature technologies which have got innovation in it and fill the gaps so that we will be able to raise the TRL level to 7 or 8, then scout for entrepreneurs and license this technology to the startup companies in India and abroad. So that is what precisely we do here. So we are having technologies in almost all areas of science and technology. We have already transferred around 5,000 technologies. We filed 2,000 patents. We are working with more than 500 institutions across the country. So major activities, as I mentioned to you, we support pilot plant studies, IPR protection and management. We file patents free of cost. We open university innovation facilitation centers. So far, we have opened 15 such kind of university innovation facilitation centers across the country. And major support we provide is a prototype development and field testing. If you have got a brilliant idea, which can transform the businesses, which can transform the society. We fund those kind of developments, provide the financial assistance, scale it up, develop the prototype, validate it, then commercialize it. So whatever that gaps are required are there. With market research assistance we provide, regulatory approvals assistance we provide. We have got a funding also, seed funding we provide to all these companies who take technologies from us. Even otherwise also, if you have got a brilliant idea, you can always apply. We will evaluate at national level and grant that kind of a funding. We are also part of Startup India. Startup India, you all know that government has created Startup India mission to promote startup companies in the country. So the scheme was launched in 2016. From there onwards till today, last 4 years, I think more than 35,000 startups have been registered under the Startup India portal. And based on that only the DIPP carries out all this ranking of states. So we are also part of the Startup India mission. Government of India gives a lot of incentives to the startup companies who have innovation in those startup companies. So that whether the startup has got innovation or not, that somebody has to assess. So that responsibility of that assessment was given to NRDC. So whatever applications are coming to DIPP under Startup India mission, seeking financial assistance, grants, incentives, they're all referred to NRDC. NRDC evaluates whether the startup has got innovation in it or not. Government of India has also given the definition of what do you mean by innovation. Innovation in the sense the product or the service which is coming out of the startup should be first of its kind in India. Then only we call it as innovation. So if whether that criteria is there or not, we use all our databases, expertise, and tell yes, this startup qualifies for the definition, and this can be given that kind of a benefits. When we analyzed more than 4,000 proposals during the last 2 to 3 years, which were referred to us, we found out only around some 300 proposals which are meeting that kind of a criteria. So remaining 3,500 startups, there are Me Too kind of a startups. Really, there is no innovation, but that doesn't bar you, or that doesn't you can call it as a startup. But only thing is, if you want to get the benefits of the government, you should meet the criteria. As long as there is a business, as long as an opportunity to sell your product or service, still you can be a startup, produce it, sell it. There is no bar on that. So if you want to get these benefits only, you should fulfill that criteria. So we have been also helping Government of India. We are also part of Indian Oil Corporation Startup Fund. They have also created a startup fund of 60 crores. Along with Indian Oil Corporation, we are also managing that fund. So far, we have invested in 24 startup companies, 60 crores. We identified these brilliant ideas across the country. We have got, I think, more than 500 proposals. Out of the 500 proposals, we have shortlisted 24 ideas, and these ideas are being incubated across the country. Under this program, we are giving 1 to 3 crores grant to all the startup companies to build their prototypes. Then incubation services we provide. Of course, all the services what I spoke, they're also required by the incubation centers. We have been providing this. NRDC also gives national awards. Every year, national awards are being given. People who bring innovations to the market. This year's call is also been given. Anyone has got brought this idea to market, they can also apply. It's very prestigious awards. Finally, what we do here, whatever technologies we are licensing, which we sourced from all these R&D labs, universities, corporate R&D, we generate revenue, and the bulk of that revenue we plow it back to the research organizations, universities, from where we source these technologies. So the remaining whatever 25 to 30% we are keeping, that is our operational expenses. NRDC is a self-sustaining organization from its services. We don't get our salaries from government. We earn our salaries from the projects and programs and consultancy. Okay, next one, please. Next one. So how NRDC is supporting IP protection and commercialization, as I mentioned to you. We work with all government labs in CSIR, DRDO, ICAR, ICMR, universities, IITs, and we have access to the innovative technologies. And NRDC also, as we prepared a technology bank in which we have showcased around 3,000 innovative technologies. Any startup company, any entrepreneur, any individual wanted to start his business, wanted to start his company, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Okay, once you decided you wanted to become an entrepreneur, reach out to NRDC. NRDC will handhold you. We will provide you technology. We will provide you funding. We will connect you to various investors. We will connect you to various government departments. We will connect you to regulatory authorities. In fact, NRDC is a one-stop solution for all the startup companies and MSMEs. But unfortunately, many people are not aware. It's a wonderful institute. Has been created to promote innovation, entrepreneurship, and startups in this country. So I urge all the participants to propagate this message among the young entrepreneurs, young students, to reach out, to get connected with NRDC, work with NRDC to realize their entrepreneurial dreams. Okay. Then we also partnered with the Ministry of Defense. We also established one intellectual property facilitation center at the DGQA, that is the Director General of Quality Assurance in the Ministry of Defense. This cell is helping all the DPSUs in filing their patents, in commercializing their patents. It is a very wonderful initiative of the Ministry of Defense. We have been working with them. As I mentioned to you, we are also part of IOCL and DIPP Startup India Mission. We have opened now, I think 12 plus 3, 15 university innovation facilitation centers across the country. One such university innovation facilitation center we also granted in Gujarat Technical University. It is functioning for the last 2 years. And 2 IPFC supported centers, IPFC centers supported by MSME also we have opened. One is at Visakhapatnam. One was at Bangalore, which was closed, but the Visakhapatnam center is doing well so far. And we also organize IPR awareness programs, IPR training programs across the country, not only for India, even for outside Asian country members and African country members. Under ITEC program, we have been organizing this IPR awareness program. We have also established one UN WIPO TIS center supported by CPAM and DIPP at Visakhapatnam, our in NRDC office. NRDC has already transferred 5,000 technologies. Majority of them are to SMEs and startup companies. Okay, next one, please. So I mentioned to you we licensed more than 5,000 technologies. From where those technologies have come and in what areas, I would like to mention here. Bulk of our technologies, what you have transferred, have come from CSIR labs, 44% of them. And next big organization is DRDO. 29% of the technologies, what you have transferred, have come from DRDO. ICAR 12%, Indian Council of Medical Research 6%, universities technologies 7%, 2% have come from PSUs. But in what areas we have? Bulk of our technologies are in the area of food and agriculture. Around 43% of our technologies are in the food and agriculture, engineering another 40%, biotechnology 4%, chemical 13%. Next one, please. So, as I mentioned to you, we also filed patents more than now. I think more than this a little bit old data, more than 2,000 patents. Bulk of our patents we have filed from research institutions. Around 14% have come from the academic institutions. 23% have come from individuals. Even an individual, if he invented something, NRDC files patents free of cost. All these patents we filed free of cost. Even individuals who have come out with innovative ideas, they can approach us. We file free of cost their patents. Next. So as I mentioned to you, this is a one-stop shop for all the startup companies. We provide technology assessment, pilot plant studies, IPR protection, prototyping, field testing, clinical trials, market research, basic engineering package preparation, DPR preparation, regulatory dossiers, approvals, publicity, marketing, angel funding. So like that, whatever is required by a startup company, by an entrepreneur, NRDC provides all of them. Okay, next one, please. Next one. Yeah, these are some of the success stories of NRDC. The Ayush ATT, which is a recent blockbuster technology, is an anti-diabetic herbal formulation developed by the Ministry of Ayush. We licensed to more than 7-8 companies. They are doing very well. IMU9 is one of the popular brand, which is being telecasted in almost all languages. It's a very good, very successful technology. We are getting good royalty on this. Anti-arthritis ointment, again another good technology of CSR. DNIST has developed it. for all the knee pains. This is also Ortho Balm. I think many companies are also marketing in the TV channel. That's a very successful product. Solar Power Tree, 20 and 10 HP tractors. See the Swaraj tractors which were in the market. The technology belongs to NRDC. NRDC licensed the technology initially to Swaraj tractors. Now that Swaraj tractors company was acquired by Mahindra and Mahindra. So all that 20 HP tractors marketed by Mahindra and Mahindra and International Tractors, the brand name of Sonalika. These tractors are NRDC licenses. The indelible link for election purpose. When you go for elections, they put a ink on our finger to say that you have already voted, you cannot vote again. So that ink technology was licensed by NRDC. Infant food, that is baby food, Amul's baby milk powder, you know. In fact, this technology is there in Anand. Dr. Kurian, the father of the White Revolution, who bought this technology from NRDC, established this as a part of NDDB there. This is one of our successful technology transfer. The other day I met the MD of NDDB. I asked him, sir, how this product is doing? What kind of revenues you are getting from our technology? He said he is getting around some 3,000 crores from the Amul baby milk powder alone. So that is our technology, our contribution to the nation. Okay. Artificial heart valve, again a very good technology. Sri Chitra Institute for Medical Sciences has developed it. TTK Healthcare is manufacturing, and already about more than 2 lakh valves have been implanted in Indian patients. Now they're also started exporting. Many cement plants, many cement plants have been licensed by NRDC. Disposable blood bag systems, again this is a very good technology. 60% of the market share of this disposable blood bag technology are of our licenses. Then Vijayata, again it is a sericulture product. We have licensed more than 100 technologies in sericulture. Super absorbent hydrogel, again a very good technology for agriculture purpose. You know, when there is no rain, crops will die, farmers commit suicide. But this super absorbent hydrogel, if you use in the particularly where there is no rain and the agriculture is depending upon rain-fed irrigation, if you throw this hydrogel in the soil and give one water or one irrigation, it absorbs 500% of its weight. 1 kg of this hydrogel absorbs 500 to 600 kgs of its weight water and retains in the soil. So when there is no rain, when the plant needs water, moisture, this hydrogel releases that water and saves the crop. So that's a beautiful technology. This technology we licensed to Carborundum Universal as well as Reliance Industries in your state alone. Then extraction of azadirachtin. This is a biopesticide. Potassium humus, again a health soil health conditioner based on lignite. Monocrotophos, invert sugar, spirulina algae, water filter candles, glucose biosensor. These are some of the important technologies, but there are thousands of technologies which are in the market based on NRDC licenses. Next one, please. So these are some of our technologies licensed across the country. In almost every state, NRDC has licensed. If you look at again, Maharashtra emerged as the #1 state for receiving these technologies from NRDC. 867 technologies were licensed. So this is a little bit old data. We need to update it, but tells you the trend. You know, Maharashtra is #1, followed by I think Karnataka, then Tamil Nadu, then Delhi, then West Bengal, and Andhra and Telangana, Gujarat. So these are all the states where maximum licenses of NRDC technologies are present. Next one, please. So these are the university innovation facilitation centers what we have established across the country during the last 5 years. We have a University Innovation Facilitation Center at All India Institute of Medical Science, Amity University, National Institute of Technology, Silchar, Indian Institute of Engineering and Science Technology, Shibapur, Calcutta, Gujarat Technical University, which were licensed given the center in 1617, National Institute of Pharmaceutical Education, Naipur, Mohali, and Indian Institute of Technology, Banaras, Varanasi, Anna University, Kaviyatri, Bahina Bai Chowdhury, North Maharashtra University, Tejpur University, Punjab Agriculture University, So these universities we select based on a national call we give, and there is a specified criteria. So like the number of papers they publish, the number of patents they file, the number of research scholars they have. So based on all these parameters, we evaluate every year. We give a call seeking applications from the universities, and so far we have established 15 such kind of centers across the country during the last 5 years. Next. So universities who are good at research, they can apply for it. Then now we are in the COVID times. I think without touching and without talking COVID, I think no talk is complete and no talk is relevant nowadays. So in response to COVID, pandemic created, the ill effects of this pandemic created has affected all of us. And we all need to be sensitive, responsible in our day-to-day official duties. So on a part of NRDC, what is that we could do, that is what we thought, and we responded to it in a manner that whatever research has been done in this country, whatever technologies have been developed to combat COVID in our country during the last 2 to 3 months time, we compiled all those technologies on the 3 T's, that is tracing, testing, and treatment. So more than 200 technologies were developed by various public funded organizations within a period of 2 months. That is a great achievement of the Indian science and technology. I would say that the efficiency of the Indian science and technology departments has increased phenomenally. I think in the history, I think so far probably we might not have heard development of a 200 technologies in 2 months. So that is the kind of the speed at which the Indian science and technology departments have responded for combating COVID. So what we did is that we compiled all those technologies and published a compendium which gives what are the unique features of this technology, at what stage of development, whether it got approved by the ICMR or other regulatory authorities. So this compendium was launched by our Secretary DSA, Dr. Shekhar Mande, and it received a very wide publicity and a lot of appreciations for this effort. And once this compendium was made available in the public domain, more than 60-70 entrepreneurs approached us seeking the technologies from this compendium. We wanted to start a venture to prepare a sanitizer. We wanted to start a venture to manufacture a mask. We wanted to start a venture to prepare ventilators. So like that, it has got varieties of technologies. So around 60 inquiries we have received as soon as we made it public. And all the 60 inquiries are at various stages of its processing. Already we have concluded around some 9 or 10 technologies for which technology transfer is taking place. Apart from that, we've also started an initiative to file patents on COVID by startups free of cost on a fast track basis. We file the patent within a week's time if a good application comes on the related to COVID, because when we did a patent landscaping on the COVID related technologies, India has not got even a single patent. There are other countries have filed many patents on the COVID related technologies. So to expedite that, we also started that scheme. And we also invited proposals from startup companies, laboratories, universities, whoever has got a good technology, laboratory scale technology. If they want to scale up the technology, we have also provided grants to these innovators, researchers, faculty members. We received around some 65 proposals. Last month we have given the call. Day before yesterday we had a meeting. We have selected 16 proposals, project proposals for funding from NRDC on various technologies related to testing, tracing, and treatment. So we also brought out a good our publication, Innovation Intelligence. Innovation Intelligence. There is a magazine we published. Last issue we exclusively focused on COVID technologies. It gives a lot of information. So this is one of the technologies which are licensed, developed by Indian Navy doctor. He is a doctor. As a doctor, he understood the problems. So most of these PPE kits what are available in the market, they are not breathable. A lot of sweat it generates while working. So this doctor has developed a PPE kit, which is a breathable, which is based on a fabric, cotton fabric, and approached us for licensing through DGKA, that Ministry of Defense. We filed patent. We also got trademark registered for this product, and we licensed this technology to 6 MSMEs. And already this product has been launched. It is in great demand. We received almost around 30 inquiries for this, but we evaluated and we have decided to give a company or a startup who has got the kind of a passion, resources, and the infrastructure. So recently we concluded this technology transfer to 6 companies, 6 MSMEs. Next. This is very cost effective. The suit comes within around 400 rupees. So ultimately, I would like to conclude saying that IPR is such an important thing in human pursuits. You want to achieve excellence in your life, excellence in your country. IPR is the key. IPR is a bridge between the academia and industry. So it is represented by the knowledge what we create. Is represented by Goddess Saraswati. And once you put that knowledge into use, it creates wealth, employment. That is what we call it as a Lakshmi. So as long as we are able to create an equilibrium between these two forces, the countries, the nations, becomes prosper. So our job is, as a NRDC role, is to convert this knowledge into wealth, wealth into knowledge, and maintain this equilibrium in this country as much as possible all the time. Thank you very much, all of you, for giving this opportunity and listening to me patiently, almost for the last 1.5 hours. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mahanta.
Thank you, Professor. Should we take some questions?
Yeah, please.
Wonderful. One question I can see from the participant, he says that you rightly mentioned, if we have some kind of guideline regarding you patent fast and then publish, probably the number of patents in this country will go up. What's your comment in this?
Yeah, that is what my wish also. But we need to push, all of us, all stakeholders should push for it. See, the person who is sitting at the helm of the affairs, he may be having a different opinion. So that is what there should be a consensus should be arrived at on this point. And all the stakeholders, I think we should represent and voluntarily should come forward. You see, there was a feeling if you put a patent, their thesis will not be accepted because their pressure and their objective is to submit a thesis, getting their PhD degree and all. But I also argued in several places, it will not stop getting their PhD. What is required is you just file the patent application. Your job is over. Let them take their own time, sweet time, don't worry. But that is what, when I presented this to AICTE and others, they said, no, it will delay the process of getting PhD. I don't think it.
Yeah, in Gujarat IP guideline, we have given instruction to every university that they have to take consent from the thesis submitting person. If the person says, I'm interested to file a patent, that can go in a different track, and conventional thesis can go in a different track. But yes, thesis submission will not be delayed. That's how Gujarat government has notified to every universities through the IP guidelines, sir.
Right.
Wonderful. So some people are asking about basics of intellectual property right, like whether my patent holds globally or is it a territorial thing. Would you like to little explain on that?
Yeah. You are a good teacher to explain. But anyway, see, there is nothing like a global patent. Patent laws are jurisdictional. So if you file a patent, you get right protection only in India. If you want to get a patent protection in US, you have to file a patent in US. So the different countries you can file, but now there is a easy tool. Now all the governments across the globe sat together and they came out with a tool called PCT. So Patent Cooperation Treaty. With one application, you can file your patent in different countries. But you need to decide, take a call, because filing patent, as I mentioned to you, is a bit expensive affair. Unless you anticipate some business, some commercialization of your patent in that country, there is no point in filing a patent.
So you also mentioned about the initiative of technology transfers in across universities, right? So somebody is asking from a university that technically how much time it takes for a university to set up a process for basic IP awareness to commercialization process setting up?
You see, it all depends on the people who are involved in the setting up of that and the top management support. The top management decides to establish a TTO, technology transfer office or IPR cell, and put people and train them and implement that. It can be done even within a month's time. It all depends. What is the mandate and what is the focus and what you wanted to achieve. Depending, is it the question? My answer is okay.
Yeah.
So that's what I understand is that you wanted to know to establish a system in the university to facilitate a technology transfer. Yes. What system should be put in place and how long it will take to implement or put in that?
Broadly.
Yeah. So it doesn't require all these technology transfer office or IP cells across the globe. It is a very lean structures. There are 2 to 3 people will be there in that kind of a structure initially to start with. Okay. So once your university has got a good number of patents, good research is going on, one can think of establishing such kind of a institutional mechanisms. It can be done if you have a resources, if you have people, and if you have a commitment to do it. It can be done within in a month's time. It's not a big deal.
Wonderful. So one question, I think we have Sri Nagarajan sir, Commissioner of Higher Education, with us. He is traveling, but I will like to request sir to address the participants and share his views on audio maybe.
Yeah, can you hear me, Hiranbhai?
Yes, absolutely. Perfect, sir.
Thank you, and thank you, Purushottam sir, for joining us once again in this very inspiring session. And we are so glad to have you here. This is a very pivotal session because in the week 1, this has now brought in focus the connection between Ma Lakshmi, Saraswati and Ma Lakshmi, which has been rightly taken up by our audience. And sir, even in your previous session, we had the benefit of understanding how commercialization could actually unlock value and the role of NRDC. So all the participants, we are more than 5,000 here, will find it very, very useful because in this journey of IP, somewhere the commercialization is the component that is most critical if you want to take the benefit to the masses. So thank you for joining us, sir. I think Hiranbhai, we should take more questions to get benefit out of sir's presence today.
Wonderful, sir. Wonderful. Thank you for joining us despite you are traveling. Because your inspiration has made this program possible to take it to more than 5,000 participants. I will pick a few more questions, Dr. Purushottam. Dr. Purushottam, आपने बताया कि कोई टेक्नोलॉजी बनता है, उसकी पैटेंट फाइल करते हैं, उसको कमर्शलाइजेशन करते हैं. तो ये जो प्रोसेस होता है उसमें कमर्शियल. पुरुषोत्तम जी, एक पार्टिसिपेंट का सवाल ये है कि आपने कहा कि कोई भी टेक्नोलॉजी पैटेंट आप फाइल करते हैं, फिर उसको कमर्शलाइजेशन करते हैं. तो आपने बताया कि या तो एक पार्टी को आप लाइसेंस करते हैं या मल्टी पार्टी को लाइसेंस करते हैं, जिसको आपने कहा कि एक्सक्लूसिव लाइसेंस या नॉन एक्सक्लूसिव लाइसेंस करते हैं. उसके बारे में थोड़ा इंफॉर्मेशन चाहिए.
So once you have a patent, you can either license it or you can sell it. These are the 2 ways through which you can realize or monetize your IP. So in the process of licensing, again, there are 2 types of licensing. One is exclusive license, the other one is non-exclusive license. Exclusive license is given to only one party. Okay, when you give to one party, in case if the further development is required, where the entrepreneur has to invest more money than the development cost of your technology, in the interest of bringing the product to market, we consider giving exclusive license. For example, drugs, pharmaceuticals, where you need to have a clinical trials. You see, the clinical trial cost is 2/3 of the total technology cost generally. 1/3 is only for the development in the laboratory, the molecule development. But 2/3 of the cost will be one has to incur for getting the clinical trials data generated, approved, and all those things. In such kind of scenario, we consider giving a exclusive license. But where the technology is already perfected in your laboratory and straight away it can be scaled up with little modifications and produce the product. And when the product has got enormous applications and users, we consider giving it as a non-exclusive license. So that means you can give this license to more than one party as well. So it all depends on the technology and the inventor, the institute policy. Okay, that is how a decision has to be taken, whether it is exclusive or non-exclusive. And again, another important factor as an inventor you should know is that how do you decide the value of your technology? Okay, you developed a technology, you wanted to license it, you have licensed it. Another important factor you need to also know is that exclusive licenses are always costlier because you are restricting giving this technology to more than one party. So whatever development cost you have incurred, you need to recover that money along with your profit from one party only. So that is why the exclusive licenses are always costly. Non-exclusive licenses are cheaper. But when you give a non-exclusive licenses, there will be a lot of competition among the technology receivers. So the fittest will survive in the market. That is what the government policy.
वंडरफुल. सो एक जो है आईपी के बारे में बात हो रही है, एक इंटरेस्टिंग क्वेश्चन मैं देख रहा हूँ. जो आईपी लॉ है ये तो कंट्री स्पेसिफिक है, टेरिटोरियल राइट्स है, लेकिन मान लीजिए कि कोई एक बीमारी है, कोविड जैसा जो महामारी है, और उसके लिए कोई पर्टिकुलर कंपनी ने कोई शोध बनाया है और उसको ऊपर पेटेंट करने के जा रहा है, क्या सरकार की लॉ में उस केस को सेपरेटली डील करने का प्रावधान है? कुछ राइट टू लाइफ और राइट टू आईपी का बीच में कुछ लीगल प्रावधान है क्या?
That is what, each country has got its own IP law, which basically has to balance the public interest versus the inventor's rights. Okay, that is a government's decision. That is why in the IP Act also, the Patent Act, they introduced the compulsory license. So government has got a overriding power, even though if it is granted, patent is granted, government has got always a power to give a compulsory license on the same technology to other people in the interest of the public. Of course, the person who holds a patent, he will never lose his rights and he will also be compensated. But only thing is that kind of a monopolistic thing will not be there.
So that अगर कोई दवाई बनती है तो कोई एक कंपनी उसकी मुनाफा करके एक्सप्लॉइट ना करे और जनता की सुविधाओं के बीच में ना आ जाए. सो दैट आप कह रहे हैं कि पब्लिक हित के लिए सरकार कोई नोवेल चीज के ऊपर भी डिसीजन अलग से ले सकता है.
या ले सकता है.
वंडरफुल. सर, कई सालों से हम लोग अखबार में पढ़ते हैं कि खास करके अमेरिकन सरकार जो है बुलिंग करने की कोशिश करता है इंडियन गवर्नमेंट के साथ आईपी रेजिम को लेकर. आई रिमेम्बर जब ओबामा प्रेसिडेंट थे तभी इस बारे में काफी ज्यादा डिस्कशन हुआ था. तो क्या एग्जैक्टली इरादा है? एक अमेरिका की एक लिस्ट है जिसमें कहते हैं कि वीक आईपी रेजिम लिस्ट होती है, तो एग्जैक्टली क्या होता है उस चीज में, एंड व्हाई इंडिया हैज अ वेरी स्ट्रांग स्टैंड कि वी विल हैव आवर ओन वे ऑफ प्रोटेक्टिंग आईपी?
See, the American government kept India on that watchdog or watch list way, and I think 302 or something like that.
302, yeah, T302.
T302. So they feel that some of these developing countries, they don't respect the IPs. They copy the IPs. They don't enforce the laws. So they kept some of these countries like India, China in their watchdog list or watch list. And all the time they talk, saying that India doesn't respect the IP, global IP rights and all those things. But it's not that we are very much TRIPS compliant. TRIPS is the global platform. All the countries who are signatories to that TRIPS platform, they are all complying as per the TRIPS. So that is what our Indian government all the time argues. We are very much TRIPS compliant our IP laws. We are not violating any of them. But thing is, as we talked about, IPs are only territorial. We have some our own policies like see, they want, US people want evergreening should be allowed. Okay, if you have a patent, if you make a even little improvement, if the patent is expiring, they want to extend the life of the patent by adding that little improvement. But India, it is not possible. Indian IP laws, they don't allow. So that is why they call even the compulsory license. So these are some of the irritating points for them, particularly the business people. So they always lobby with their government and say that these are some of the countries don't respect the IPs and create that kind of an impression.
Wonderful. पुरुषोत्तम सर, ये जो NRDC सपोर्ट करता है, कोई भी विद्यार्थी, कोई भी स्टार्टअप इनोवेटर आपकी पोर्टल पर अप्लाई कर सकता है या क्या तरीका है?
Yes, they can apply to our portal, but only thing is that the competition is very tough and our evaluation process is very tough. Unless it is really innovative, they will not be through. So we receive every year maybe 70, 60, 40 proposals, and our support rate is hardly 3 to 4 every year. So if really is an innovative thing, but there are some other conditions also along with that grant. Whatever innovation you are developing, that needs to be assigned to NRDC for its further commercialization by NRDC. So that is why some people, they don't like to assign the technology, but people who are willing to assign the technology, but assignment means, see, we market the technology and whatever money we generate out of it, we also plow it back to you. Okay. Yes, it is available for students, but many people are not aware. And also we conduct some student startup contests also along with our event. We select some people, we give some awards also, national awards also. In our awards, which notification has been published, there also we give award some 5 awards to the budding student entrepreneurs.
वंडरफुल. पुरुषोत्तम सर, एक सवाल में देख रहा था, किसी ने कहा कि आपने आज एक स्लाइड में दिखाए थे कि जिसमें जीडीपी ऑफ द कंट्री इज कोरिलेटेड टू द आईपीज ऑफ दैट, तो थोड़ी सी उसके बारे में और माहिती देंगे?
Yeah, that is what I tried to highlight, the importance of IPR along with the GDP. So basically, if you look at countries like China and US, they file large number of patents. Okay, once you have a patent, they will lead to commercialization, innovative products. So as I mentioned in one of my slides also, in US, when they carried out a study in 130,000 startup companies, they contributed about 6 trillions of to the economy. Okay, it's almost double the economy of Indian economy in US has come from the IP based products, which is about some 38% of their GDP. Okay, so I have shown one slide in around 5 countries, how the country's patent portfolio and how the economies. So it is not a there is no statistical model or anything. It is only an empirical thing what I observed. Okay, one side I plotted the country's patents, the other side the GDP of the country. So indirectly I wanted to draw the attention of the researchers and all the audience. If a country has got a strong IP portfolio, the economy of the country is also very strong, and the GDP is higher. That is what the point I would like to drive through that slide.
True, because when you license and get it manufactured globally, your royalty comes back to your nation. Yeah. So definitely that makes a lot of sense. Sir, China has recently introduced something called incremental IP things. Would you like to highlight a little on that?
Yeah. There is also called what they call incremental IP. Utility patents. There is another category of patents. They are called utility patents. Their innovation is not that great important. It need not be first of its kind. Okay, but it improves a little bit on the existing technology. They can file as a patent. That is why they call it a utility. The novelty component is not that essential there. If it benefits, it improves your existing operations, you call under the utility category, you still get a patent. Even Singapore.
These are
also,
kind of incremental things.
Yes, as incremental patents.
Yeah. So what was the interest of China in making this thing possible?
See, as is a territorial policy, they wanted to show to the world we are number one in filing patents.
Okay. Wonderful. One question that.
Yeah, to create the culture of innovation, just government encourages, so the culture of creativity will be enhanced.
True. Wonderful. सर ये जो generally अगर 100 patents फाइल होते हैं तो एवरेज कितना ग्रांट होते हैं और कितना कमर्शियलाइजेशन होता है, किसी ने पूछा है.
Yeah, that is a good question. If you look at, of course, again it's a country specific. If you look at US, almost 50% of the patents what have been filed. Of course, it all depends, but you have to see this in a period. It cannot be year to year. One cannot say, because there also it takes 3 to 4 years in US also. So if you analyze for a period of, say, for example, 5 years, wherein I have analyzed the Harvard University applications filed and patents granted, almost 50% of the application. That is what it all depends on the university to university or system to system. If you look at the Harvard University case which I presented, whatever applications they have filed, that also have analyzed over a period of 5 years, because there is always a lag in this filing and sanction. So we can only analyze a period. It cannot be analyzed only last year how many applications you filed, how many patents you granted. It cannot be analyzed. So when you see the 5 years data of Harvard University, almost whatever applications they have filed, 50% of that they have got patents filed. So if you also see the again Harvard University, around 35 to 40% of the patents what they have granted, they have commercialized also. But whereas if you country as a whole, if you see US as a whole, the statistics shows around 10 to 12% of the patents what they have filed or granted, they were able to commercialize it. Coming to India, again, the ratios are different. In India, almost I think the filing and granting may be close to the US, or maybe a little less than US, maybe 10-15% less. But in terms of commercialization, if you look at, our commercialization rate is, again, national average is only around 3 to 5%. But institution like CSA or DRDO, there the commercialization rate is higher, even 12 to 13%. So it all depends on, you need to analyze this thing with reference to the institute, with reference to the nation, and with reference to the global.
So the question is, somebody is saying there is a product or service in market. I'm working something new around that, but the innovator has not filed patent. Am I eligible to go for filing patent?
You say when you file a patent, the pre-art, when you do the pre-art, there it will be reflected. If the already product is in the market, in the public domain, even the examiner also will point out.
But in case the creator has not claimed for the patent, in case the creator has not claimed for the patent.
Of course, then you can see your file will speak. Whatever you submit, it is all in public domain. So if it is not on the record, obviously you will get it.
So in the interest of,
and also there will be a, when you file a patent and it will be published, and it will be put in the public domain, and patent office will ask for opposition. If somebody opposes it at that point of time, and they will examine it. If the claim is valid, they may disallow the patent. If the claim is invalid, they may allow the patent.
True. Wonderful. So that comes to my summary, maybe that even if आपकी दिल बड़ा है, आपको open source करना है, आप file करके open source कर दो rather than खुला छोड़ दो. So that's the colloquial way of interpreting that, right? So in the interest of audience, let me just tell you, क्योंकि बहुत सारे questions basics IP पे आ रहे हैं. देखिए, जो पहला हफ्ता था आपकी कोर्स का, जो आज अंत हो रहा है, ये basics of innovations पे था. जो दूसरा हफ्ता है जो कल से चालू होगा, एक्चुअली बेसिक्स ऑफ आईपी कल से चालू होगी। तो बहुत सारे क्वेश्चंस थे जिनको मैं आज क्यूरेट नहीं कर रहा हूं, ये आपकी कल की सेशंस के लिए हो जाएंगे। तीसरा जो वीक है उसमें हम किस तरीके से नोवेल्टी बढ़ाना है, किस तरीके से पैटेंटेबिलिटी बढ़ाना है, कैसे पैटेंट लिखते हैं, उसके बारे में बातचीत करने वाले हैं। वीक 4 जो है पैटेंट लिखने के बाद प्रोसिक्यूशन कैसे होता है, लीगल एस्पेक्ट कैसा होता है, उसके बारे में बात करेंगे। और 5वां, 6वां और 7वां वीक जो है इंडस्ट्रियल डिजाइन, ट्रेडमार्क, कॉपीराइट, ये सब के बारे में करेंगे। क्योंकि कुछ सवाल मैं देख रहा हूँ, लोग पूछ रहे हैं कि कला के क्षेत्र में क्या कर सकते हैं, डिजाइन के क्षेत्र में क्या कर सकते हैं। हमने पूरी कोर्स आप सबको नजर पर रखते हुए बनाया गया है, सबके लिए पिटोरा में कुछ ना कुछ है। और फिर जो 9वां वीक है वहां हम बात करेंगे कि जो आईपी आपने बनाया उसको कमर्शियलाइजेशन करने की तरीका क्या है, आपने कुछ शोध किया है, उसकी मार्केट वैल्यू कैसे निकालेंगे, उसकी प्रोसेस क्या है। सो दीज आर एरियाज दैट वी विल फोकस ऑन द एंटायर कोर्स। और आखिरी तक आपको पूरा पता चल जाएगा कि बेसिक इनोवेशन से लेकर आखिरी तक जर्नी में आपको कैसा रहेगा। तो ये कोर्स की जो है ब्रॉड आउटलाइन है। हैविंग सेड दैट, नागार्जुन सर को मैं रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा, सर आपके पास भी अगर कोई सवाल है पुरुषोत्तम जी के लिए तो आप पूछ सकते हैं। एंड along with that, I will request you to share your closing remarks of the session today.
Yeah, thank you, Aaron bhai. In fact, when we had as part of the 100 webinar series in iHub regarding technology commercialization, all the audience were inspired to look at commercialization as a driving aspect of innovation. And even sir, I have been also highly enlightened, and today's lecture also has brought me a lot of knowledge. Sir, to tell you, I am also part of the student fraternity. I am also part of the more than 5,000 people, and I am also listening to the sessions and attending the assignments. I will request all the audience also to follow the course religiously, attend the sessions, and also to attend the assessments, because this is a very, very wonderful opportunity to learn from the highest experts on this topic of IP and innovation as theme. Sir, my request to you right now is to give 3 or 4 actionable items to our participants. Majority of them are professors, college assistant professors, lecturers in colleges, and they are all startups, innovators who are in in the Gujarat, and many people from outside also have joined. So these are the people who are going to be the change makers for innovation and create and startup ecosystem in the Gujarat mainly and also across India. तो आपकी जो टीम है आज, उसमें 3-4 actionable homework दीजिए, because you are our teacher today and we would like to take a very actionable things from them which could extend the learning of this session, sir. So that is my request. Great idea, sir. Definitely I will try to do my best. But I would also like to, because NRDC is a very old organization in the area of technology transfer. I don't know whether Hiramai kept anyone from NRDC as a speaker for technology transfer. I think you see
Sahu, Dr. Sahu is talking, sir.
Technology transfer.
Yes. When we have other people also, but that week we have very world-class authority talking on technology transfer.
But if you want to talk about technology transfer in India, I think NRDC is a hallmark.
Absolutely. And this is what Nagarjan sir told, sir, regarding today's session. If anything that our participant need to do, you can suggest us.
सर, अभी इन लोगों के लिए कुछ तो एक बता दीजिए ऑनलाइन, सो दैट आज जो लोग कुछ लाइन पे लग जाए, काम पे लग जाए, गूगल कर ले, कुछ असाइनमेंट कर ले या ढूंढ ले. Okay, I think it is very important for them to understand. Yes, sir. What are the pillars on which innovation capacity of a university or a state is being assessed? What is the framework? So that is very, very important, people to understand those frameworks, so that their mind, when they do work, always try to connect their work, their deliverable to what is this pillars. So that will help the university, that will help the state to get connected to the national ecosystem. So that is one thing. Sir. The second thing is, I was not informed, otherwise I would have thought of some good questions. Sir, you can inform us later also.
But you can give us in writing later on, sir. That's not necessarily that it has to be extempore.
Okay. Yeah. So that is what our thought process alignment
should be in line with the national policy.
Yes, sir.
That is very, very important, so that we will be able to understand those parameters and try to build those parameters in our systems, in our institutions,
Yes, sir.
and deliver targeting those things rather than aimlessly delivering something.
Yes, sir.
That is one thing. And anyway, I will think and I will come back to you.
Yes, sir. Please mail us, sir. We will forward it to the more than 5,000 participants who are in this. And excellent support we are getting from them. They are all involved and they are listening to each and everything. And participation in assessments and assignments has also been wonderful. There are not much left outs. So we are happy that people are so much committed to this wave of innovation that is happening now. And today your session has marked another milestone on backing up the technology commercialization and also the role of NRDC. I think today's NRDC has entered into everyone's minds, and we will certainly come to NRDC when we require the support, and all the participants also in their respective spheres will look at NRDC as one of the possible support centers in the country for technology commercialization.
Yeah.
Sir, thank you very much for joining us, and your further guidance and inputs we will always be glad to have, and we will pass on to the participants and keep them engaged in the journey of knowledge, sir. Thank you for joining us, sir.